for Ferris Cartoumi, 183, and sets a blistering new track record. Welcome back to Heartland Motorsports Park and GRIDLIFE's finals here in Topeka, Kansas. I'm Kyle Heyer, joined by Greg Kramer. It is a beautiful autumn morning here. Crisp air, but the sun is out, and we are ready to get back on the racetrack for Track Battle Time Attack. Single lap runs with our 7 competition classes. Drivers trying to run for podiums and trying to run for track records here at Heartland Motorsports Park. Let's have a look at the track map while we're at it. We'll talk about where Alpha is because it's not a typical corner name. So if we have a look here at our 3D track map, Alpha is the first left-hand bend there after that checkered line there. The green arrows, that left-hand turn, that's Alpha. Then you head over to turn number 1, Greg, and kick off a 2.5-mile lap.
You do, and from the top, 1 climb, so at 1 is the highest point, and then you fall down through turn 2, and you cross the drag strip, so there's a pretty good bump. You got to get the car straightened out for that. Flow the speed through 2. Turn 3, all of the elevation you've dropped from 1 down into 2, you gain slowly as you climb with some banking, so you can really attack turn 3. 4 flows very nicely, but the 2 key corners, 6 and 14, those are the big launch points on the longer straight. We talk about, let's get back to track battle real quick, all of these different categories, but this Sundae Cup idea and the track TR class.
Yeah, Club TR,
Yeah, the Club TR. Those, I think, are 2 wonderful classes because Club TR is a really close cousin to a GLTC car.
Yep.
And these Sunday, the Sundae Cup cars, they're the best bang for the buck in the business right now in terms of fun for dollars spent.
I take my daughter to school in one sometimes. So they're really, really reasonable, fun cars. Even Club TR, it's disallowing built engines. Just that alone can cut the cost of a build in half. We do allow engine swaps when you go to an engine that's bigger than the factory engine. You have to weigh a minimum of 2,500 pounds, unless there's a couple of other ones like a VR6 and some of the BMW 6-cylinders that have different spec weights. But yeah, junkyard engines is the goal, and a max tire for everybody, and a Sundae Cup with a 205 max tire. We're killing a lot of shoulders on little tiny tires, but man, those cars are cheap to run besides the front tires. 25-to-1 power to weight ratio, and it really is welcoming to the B-Spec category cars, which also is a wheel-to-wheel class that's ran with Pro Series, runs with SCCA a lot, and really sort of a great place for a long-time racer to land, even in time attack or in wheel-to-wheel. It's an affordable, fun car, easy to work on. You can get a new motor for $200 in the junkyard. Honda Fits don't blow up on the street, so those motors are everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the things with it is, whether it's a destination you just love driving because it's so much fun.
Right.
But if you're thinking down the road, okay, I may want to move into something a little more powerful, a little more whatever. Yeah. It's such a great training ground because it's an affordable way to get into it.
Yep.
And anytime you're driving something that's underpowered by design, momentum is everything. And then if you understand that and learn it here, no matter where you go, if you're running in 600 horsepower cars, but everybody around you is in a 600 horsepower car, momentum, if you understand it, it's going to be a great tool.
This car on the screen here right now, this is a former World Challenge car. This is Tom O'Gorman's old car, and they swapped a K24 and it did some endurance racing, and now it can play in GLTC, it can play in time attack. Mark Bushite owns it now, good buddy of Charlie Enslin, who works for us. I actually just put the old shocks from this car, shocks and struts, onto my car. So the parts and they trickle all the way through the paddock. He had them in a box, and I ran one time attack last year at Road America. I think I got P4 in Sundae Cup, and I had just cut 1 coil off the springs. That was my suspension setup. Do a camber bolts and do an alignment. But they're such fun, cheap cars to run. Even there's used parts everywhere. They're fun to build. But they really are a great trainer. It's also a great place for somebody who burns themselves out on the upper end of some competition series to, hey, I can just buy a Fit and drive it on the street and still attend some events with my friends. So it's sort of one of my favorite parts about it. So, and another good chassis, our buddy Dusty Nixon right there in the Z, out with a 153.527, super reliable overall for him. He did just break some axle bolts in that last race. Unfortunately, but it's a super interesting car, and if you can detune it, you can get it into the brackets.
Yeah, it's really cool. And the last thing was, I love the quote that is most often associated with the mentality for the GLTC racing is the worst thing that can happen if you let the guy have the line beside you.
You leave enough room.
Is you're going to have an amazing race.
Yeah, the worst thing that can happen is you just have a great race.
Yeah.
I actually got the quote from one of our most winning GLTC drivers, Aaron Lichty. So I love that quote. Man, gotta get some chucking in a Subaru here. He actually bought this car on the way to PPIR Festival a few weeks ago. Didn't know what he was going to drive in Time Attack until he bought the car on the way with his wife and a small child. So
is that right?
I love the story behind this thing. Yep. Took it all apart, maintained it in the paddock next to the tower, and he's got a Sundae Cup car in about half a day. So
that's incredible.
Super fun.
I love it. Just got to give you a quick update. Neil Shart, who's topping this session here, he had a 57.7 was his previous best lap. He's at a 52.1.
That's 5 seconds is a lot to find.
That's a big gain. And Nixon in the number 163, Dustin Nixon, that is a 350Z at a 52.5, and he's dropped that by a 10th. So even though we're starting to see the track warm up, temperatures warming up, there's still speed to be found out there, and everybody's doing a wonderful job of that.
But yeah, Brent Vircks here in the ancient Subaru. I mean, look at the body roll on the thing. I told him he needs to cut some coils on that car, but he's having a good time just in a car that he literally found on Facebook Marketplace, I think, on the way to the event. So
that's incredible.
Yeah, that's to me, that's some of the spirit of the event is you've got a guy and his family that like hanging out in our paddock with these drivers that he drives with. He's active on the Sundae Cup group chat. He did anything he could do just to come hang out with his friends, which is so cool. And I think we just met him this year at AMP. So,
well, and one of the things that I think, a phrase that I've been thinking about a little bit that I think applies so much to grid life is, as important as imagination and innovation is recognition and enabling.
Yeah.
You know, and to say, somebody has this idea and to go, you know what, that's a darn fine idea. Yeah. We'll make that happen.
Yeah.
And you come out and then you get wonderful competition like
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Heartland Motorsports Park for the GRIDLIFE Finals, the last points round of the 2022 season. This is it. After 10 rounds of competition in 2022, we're wrapping things up in Topeka, Kansas. I'm Kyle Heyer, joined alongside by Greg Creamer. Greg, last track battle sessions of the live stream, last GRIDLIFE Touring Cup race of the season coming up in just over an hour, but we're not quite done yet. A full group of track battle, groups A through D, coverage coming up shortly.
This is a momentum class because of that. And as I've said a number of times, this is a class, if you, regardless of whether you want to stay in this is just where you want to come and play, that's great. It's going to be a really, really fun class for you to be able to get out there and do that. If you have aspirations of going somewhere else, when you learn in a momentum car, underpowered and everything, that serves you for wherever you race for the rest of the time you race. Because you learn what the value of flowing speed, not scrubbing speed, and that pays off no matter what kind of horsepower you're driving.
Yeah, there's a good look at that. Hard Times Fit is not a real true Sundae Cup car. That is used to be a pro race car that was driven by Tom O'Gorman, and it's seen several changes over its lifespan. And I've heard some people describe it as a little scary to drive with that short wheelbase and a lot of power that it has. So it doesn't get, the keys don't get tossed to just anybody. This is Brant Vircks, by the way, and that is definitely stock suspension.
Yes, you can see it.
And Brant's just out here having the best time ever and getting on the racetrack. Bought this car on Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist or whatever he did before Alpine Horizon, and man, that thing is struggling, but just having the best time, getting on track and finding the limits.
And it's interesting when you watch him in those technical tight corners there. He has it figured out. When you've got a car with that much roll. And obviously it's probably pretty pushy. So what's he doing? He is braking and then turns aggressively and dips the brake, get that weight on the nose, get that back end to start coming around, give it a little bit opposite lock and get after it.
Look at that thing. That's so fun to watch.
It's planting weight on those loaded tires nicely, isn't it?
It is. And on the brakes for turn 3. And again, the banking's going to help here. Not such a flat corner to deal with, but just making this Subaru work as hard as it's ever worked. Tons of roll here. I love the X on the headlight.
Yeah,
there.
see that?
Wow, look at him throw. Look at the sidewall of the tire kind of fold up under.
Oh yeah, and that's because he's pitching it really getting it, and then dips the brake just a little bit and just gets that back end to swing. See if he does it here as well. Reaches up and adjust the mirrors because he's got some time.
Oh, man.
And there it is.
Touches the brakes, gets the front to rotate, and around he goes up towards turn 6 and 7.
Where
And not a lot of power to pull you out.
Yeah, and where you really are going to see what he's, what I'm talking about is at 12 and 13 and 11 too. Just the way he uses that weight transfer, all that body roll to just get the weight to plant on the nose and bring the back end around.
Woo, little slide there at the exit of 8.
He's giving it. I love
man.
this.
It's so cool to watch. I mean, and he's not near the pointy end of the class.
Not even close, but I'll tell you, there's probably nobody out there with as big a grin under the helmet. Now watch
look at
this right here. Pivot brake. There it goes.
Look at that. It's
just
so
amazing.
Fun. Oh, man. Brant's going to love watching this back now and getting the third-person perspective.
Watch it here.
Look at the antenna flapping in the wind.
And
there.
right here, there it is.
Turns it in.
A little bit gentler that time. I think you realize that corner, you just want to ease it through now.
Throttle down on exit. So no excuses, Greg. You got a car, you can race at GRIDLIFE.
You bet. You bet. Whatever you own, there is a place to come out and race.